Hey, this is Brandon McManus, Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion, and you listen to The Scoop on alscoop.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Scoop, alscoop.com's podcast. I'm John DeCarlo, joined by Sam Cohn. This is Season 5, Episode 29, our blank episode. What famous number 29s are there out there?
I was looking
Sam?
it up before. Marcus Camby wore number 29 for 19 games with the Houston Rockets.
What a find on the internet.
In his second to last season. So it's the Marcus Camby episode of the Al Scoop podcast.
The Marcus Camby episode, which probably will not play well with Temple fans, considering that he terrorized Temple when he was at UMass. To this day, he is the best college basketball player I've ever seen live in person with my own eyes. He was so dominant.
2007 Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, very good player. His dealings with an agent kind of cost John Calipari his legacy on the books at UMass.
Okay.
But,
we don't have to get into that.
But Cal, hey, he rebounded, went on to Memphis, and now he's at Kentucky. But lots of good stuff to get into today with you guys. We're recording this on a Wednesday afternoon, and then we'll have stuff into the night, which will mean later on we'll have a recap and conversation about Temple's second to last regular season game against Tulsa. We'll be talking a little bit of football in the mailbag, a lot of recruiting today. But initially, before we get into some news about basketball recruiting and looking ahead to the future, because this basketball season is what it is right now. It's kind of improbable to think that Temple's going to win 4 games in 4 days in the conference tournament. They're probably not NIT bound, much less NCAA tournament bound. Before we get into all that with basketball, I do want to acknowledge the unfortunate passing of Zaire Williams, a former Temple running back. If you've been following along, just a really, really sad, unfortunate story. If you remember, Zaire Williams played 12 games in 2 seasons at Temple, was a fairly notable recruit for Matt Rule during his tenure. He had an offer from West Virginia. I think West Virginia was kind of considered the leader at his recruitment at one point, but Matt got Zaire to commit to Temple out of Timber Creek High School in South Jersey. He had played in 11 games as a true freshman in 2013, had 3 touchdowns, 533 yards rushing, honorable mention freshman All-American, and unfortunately Zaire was shot and killed Monday morning not far from Temple's campus, around 18th and Montgomery. The reporting out there says a gun was found at the scene. It seemed to be stemming from an incident downtown. Just a really, really sad, unfortunate situation. Our heart goes out to his family, his friends. So many other Temple people were chiming in on this. His former teammates like PJ Walker. I think even Shiz Alston chimed in and said, "Man, I just saw you not long ago." One of my favorite memories of Zaire was in Matt's second season at Temple. They opened up with a road win down at Vanderbilt, and it was a game that was delayed at least a couple hours by lightning. We were down there covering the game down in Nashville. Speaking of our hearts going out to people, my goodness, the tornado ripping through there and damaging that city. So there's all sorts of tough stuff going on this week. But I remember Zaire being happy after that game and him talking about how happy he was going to be on the flight home and whether or not he was going to make it to class the next morning, because the game got finished so late after midnight. And he was generally a pretty upbeat and pretty affable kid, and just can't believe he's gone. And that investigation into his death is ongoing. So again, just wanted to acknowledge his passing, a really, really, really tough story. And again, our hearts go out to his family and everyone affected by that. So hopefully we'll have more positive Temple football news for you moving forward. But again, just wanted to acknowledge that before we went any further on the podcast this week. Getting back to basketball, like I said, we're kind of know what the present is with this Temple team. Again,
it's not good.
No, not good, Bob. But there's could potentially be some stuff to look forward to in the future. And again, we'll have a recap later on of the Tulsa game, and then of course they'll have one last regular season game against Cincinnati. We'll see where they are seated in next week's conference tournament down in Fort Worth. Again, they would have to win 4 games in 4 days Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to get what would be, again, a very unlikely NCAA tournament bid. But instead of dwelling in the present, which hasn't been too much fun, we're looking ahead to the future, and that includes, at least so far, 2 recruits in the books. Jahlil White from Wildwood Catholic, Quincy Adam McCoy from Norcross High School down in Georgia. We've done a lot of stuff on Jahlil White. Sam, you saw him play last night out in Wildwood. I went with your buddy, our friend of the podcast, friend of the program, Ray Dunn.
Exactly right.
Very talented Temple student, the sports director, WHIP. You guys went to see Wildwood Catholic beat the pants off of Morristown Friends, and they're opening NJSIA non-public B opening round playoff game. They beat them by 40 points, right?
Yeah, 96-56 the final.
So obviously, as you said in your story, and again, Sam has a story up on the site right now. If you're an owlscoop.com subscriber, you can check out that story. We'll play some audio for you in a second from Jahlil White and from his coach, Dave DeWeese. Again, Sam was out there covering the game for us, and this was your first time seeing him live. What'd you think? And again, knowing that they are going to get tested later on, they probably will not truly get tested until they play Rutgers Prep in the non-public B South final, if things play out the way they're supposed to. But even knowing that they weren't really being tested by a good team, you can still see some stuff in terms of the eye test. What'd you think?
Well, I'll definitely preface it by saying he did not fully showcase his abilities. Jahlil White did not play just about the entire second half, but he did show glimmers of some things that Temple fans will get to see come next season and the seasons to come. Jahlil White's definitely that Wildwood Catholic team. They got 2 Division I commits and then a bunch of kids that can really shoot the ball pretty well and can kind
Jacob
of contribute.
Hopping, one of them. Yeah.
Okay. Taj Thweet is their other big man who's committed to West Virginia.
Temple fans know him well because Temple recruited him pretty hard. They were recruiting both these guys. Taj ended up, as you said, committing and signing with West Virginia. But yeah, they're big too.
And then Jahlil obviously coming here to Temple. So their offense is almost entirely predicated on those 2. Jalil's their backcourt piece. Taj is their frontcourt piece. Taj had at least 3 or 4 dunk attempts. He got some of them to go in and some not so much. But that kid's a high flyer, athletic kid. But Jahlil White, he's a pass-first point guard. He's got a good handle on the ball. He sees the floor really well. He wasn't matched up with a lot of size. He definitely had the size, the quickness, the athletic, the strength advantage against the kids on Morristown Friends. But you can see the way he sees the floor. He's played Wildwood Catholic plays a lot of zone. They play 1-3-1 zone in the half court or 1-2-2 trap zone at half court. And when they're playing the 1-3-1, he's on the wing. He's a kid. He's long. He's athletic. And I didn't really realize until I spoke to him after the game. He's a legit 6'7".
Yeah.
Watching film of him play, even sitting up in the stands watching him play, like he looks like he's at least 6'4", 6'5". He's a legit 6'7". He's a big kid. He's long. He's athletic. So seeing him kind of just get up and down the floor, I think the one play I put in my story that really stood out for me last night was, and I guess it speaks maybe more to the competition they were playing, but they're in the 1-3-1 zone, and he takes a shot to the eye. Then a ball goes out of bounds. Morristown Friends is inbounding, and Jahlil White is like clutching his eye with one hand, and with his offhand, while he's got his hand on his eye, steals the ball and finds Taj Thweet flying up the floor, and Thweet gets a breakaway dunk. So he works hard. He's really athletic. He's really strong, and I think he's got a good basketball IQ. He can shoot the ball, and he's really good.
His shot's come along. His shot is definitely come. I mean, again, you saw him in one game. I don't think anybody's.
He took 1-3, I think, last night. But I mean, the biggest takeaway I have of the way he plays is he's a guy that can have the ball in his hands as a guard. He doesn't have it all every possession, but he's a guy that can control the ball, and he's really good at finding open shooters.
Yeah. So again, we always have to see how things go. When guys sign, when guys commit and come in, see how they are in preseason practice, see how they do, and just playing summer pickup ball and stuff like that. But you'd have to imagine again. I don't know that Jahlil starts next year, but we'll see how things play out with the backcourt. But a guy that he's a guy that has to, again. I mean, it sounds like the most obvious thing to say, but we have so many debates, or fans have so many debates about, okay, this has been an up and down season. In Aaron's first season, it was promising at first, frustrating at times. Now it's been fully frustrating for fans. Now we really start to see what some of these recruits are made of. You know, the 2020 class really mattering, the 21 class and the 22 class really, really mattering moving forward. So, you know, Jahlil's going to be one of those guys that people point to in the future and say, hey, this guy helped things turn around or get things turned around, or he was kind of just only able to get to such a level.
One more thing I'll say just about last night is after the game when I spoke with Jahlil and Wildwood Catholic head coach Dave DeWeese, I asked him, like, in a game like this where you're up 60-19 at one point, you finish with a 40-point win, your two best players don't play the entire second half, what can you even take away from a game like this? And Jahlil, I asked Jahlil first. He hesitated. He wasn't really sure where to go with it. But his head coach, Dave DeWeese, interrupted and said, at the end of the day, we took care of business. Mm-hmm. And Jahlil was really happy with the way they started. He said the offense was clicking. They were knocking down shots across the board. But at the end of the day, they took care of business. And they just Wildwood Catholic just won their third straight Cape Atlantic League championship. Dave DeWeese basically said, you know, Jahlil's made a legacy here, him and Taj, as – you know, the guys that did that for 3 straight years. That was predicated on those two guys. But at the end of the day, that's only the start of what their end goal is.
Yeah, they really have changed kind of the balance of power down there. I've kind of mentioned it before on previous podcasts. And again, this goes back a while. But when I worked at the Daily Journal and worked out in that general area, St. Augustine Prep has been so good for so long. Paul Rodeo has coached a ton of D1 players down there at St. Augustine, just outside of Vineland. And this year, you know, he's got a solid team at the Prep, and his son actually coaches St. Joe at Hamilton, and they're starting to get better. St. Joe actually, they upset Wildwood Catholic, I think, earlier this year. But the Prep, St. Augustine Prep's kind of had a stranglehold on that area of South Jersey for a while, and this year Wildwood Catholic has beaten them quite handily, you know, both times around, and that wasn't always the case. Wildwood Catholic was not a powerhouse program down there. Obviously, they could end up taking a big step back next year when you lose Taj and Jahlil, but it's been quite a run for those guys. And again, they're embarking upon their next playoff game, Holy Spirit. They'll probably beat them pretty handily. Like I said, they probably won't be tested until that non-public B final against Rutgers Prep, which is having a really good season. But again, you mentioned that you spoke to Dave DeWeese, his coach, after the game. You spoke to Jahlil. So here's a little bit from Sam's conversation after the game. Again, not an exciting game to say the least. Kind of was what it was. But here's part of Sam's interview with Jahlil White and Dave DeWeese from last night.
So for starters, you guys jumped out to a quick lead. Kind of what was clicking on offense and defense for you guys?
It's all you, man.
We were just hitting shots. We've been hitting shots a lot lately. We were just executing offense.
So you guys play a lot of 1-2-2 and a lot of trap zone, a lot of 1-3-1 zone. What goes into that decision? Is that, you know, athleticism and length, or what goes into that with the personnel?
We try to mix up our defenses. We try to keep people off balance. So we have a number of defenses that we use. We try and create pressure. We try and create up tempo, and we think our defense is the key to doing that. So I think from day one this season, our focus has been on the defensive end of the floor, and these guys have responded and done a very nice job. So we've been able to add different things in to kind of create, to make trouble for other teams, make it difficult for them to operate. They never are allowed to be comfortable. We don't want anybody to be comfortable. Sure.
And you got, Coach, you got 2 Division I commits. What do you think is the biggest difference between Jahlil and Taj?
Well, obviously, Jahlil's a point guard. I think he's a point guard at the next level. I think that's where he translates at the next level. Taj is probably more of a swing man, like a 3. They've both worked very hard to improve all aspects of the game. I think they're both well-rounded players. Jahlil obviously is more of a playmaker than Taj is, and Taj is obviously probably the best athlete in the state. So that's probably the difference. Jahlil defensively is much better guarding a perimeter player right now than Taj is. For Taj's 4 years here, he's been primarily assigned a post player. He does get out and guard perimeter guys as well, but Jahlil obviously is much more accustomed to guarding somebody's point guard or somebody on the perimeter.
Jahlil, what do you think the biggest difference is between you two guys and what you bring to the team?
I think Coach said it perfectly. Taj is way more athletic than me, and he bangs down low with the big guys. But I think I'm more of a point guard, so that's what separates us.
You had one play where you got hit in the face. You're kind of rubbing your eye, and with one hand you stole the ball and found him on the outlet pass. He's in a play like that. Can you take us through that 1-2 punch of you two at both ends of the floor?
I don't know. Every time I'm on the floor, I try to play hard, and that's what happened. I got to still look up to Taj. Been doing it for 4 years, so. Sure.
And I know, you really only played most of the first half. Didn't get a lot of minutes in the second half just because of the score of the game. But what can you take away from a game like this?
Let's see.
Not much.
Nothing much.
We could just I would say take care of business, and
Yeah.
that's really what we did today. We wanted to come in here and take care of business in the first half, get these guys rest in the second half, and get ready for the next one. This time of the year, it's win or go home. So we are focused on winning every night, and I think tonight was just the first step to get this one out of the way and be ready for Thursday.
And you guys won your third straight league championship. Can you talk a little bit about that? What that means to you guys?
It's huge. The Cape Atlantic League tournament's been in existence for, I believe this was the 9th year. We've won 4 out of the 9, and we've won 3 in a row. These guys, they're a legacy here at the school. They've won 3 Cape Atlantic League championships in a row. I don't know if that'll ever be matched ever again in the future. So, winning and the way we won, on Saturday against a very good team that's very, very well coached. Very impressive for our kids. They did a great job.
Jahlil, just talking about Temple for a second. What's been your relationship with, just since we last spoke about talking to the coaches, the coaching staff, the guys on the team, kind of as their season's coming to an end?
How
much have you really talked to them since we last
spoke?
spoke?
I get in touch with them a lot. Me and the players talk a lot. Me and the coaches talk every day. I became really good friends with the team. So,
who specifically has reached out to you much at all?
On the team?
Yeah.
Skip, Nate, JP, mostly all of them. Q, he's been talking to me.
What's the coaching staff talk to you much about? Kind of they've had some up and down games, they've had some struggles lately, but
they don't really talk about the games. They talk about my health and how I'm doing outside of basketball. They always talk about what's outside of basketball, life. So that's what they talk to me about.
And who's been the one you've talked to the most beyond Aaron?
Coach Clark.
So that was a little bit from my conversation with Dave and Jahlil post-game last night in Wildwood Catholic's win over Morristown Friends. Again, there was a 96-56 win in the first round of the tournament. And the thing that stuck out to me is that although Wildwood Catholic has 2 of the best players in the state, 2 Division I guys, you heard Dave DeWeese mention that Taj Thweed is probably the most athletic kid in the entire state. Jahlil White is definitely the playmaker on the team. He's the guy that's going to get you a bucket. He still said that they've been a very defensive-minded team since the start of the season. He feels all his guys have really bought into that. And, even he didn't really mention it in the interview, but watching the game in the second half, they have some other kids that can really contribute. They have 2 guys that are unbelievable, and they're going to be a huge part of their of what they want to do at both ends of the floor. But they got kids that can handle the ball. They got kids that can shoot the ball. And it probably would have been a really competitive game if Taj and Jahlil didn't play. But when you have 2 of the best kids in the state, that's going to help take Wildwood Catholic to the promised land.
Yeah. Another guy, again, in keeping with looking ahead as we look ahead to the future for this Temple basketball program, another name that we've mentioned, another name that we've brought into the mix in terms of our reporting is Tariq Silver down at Tallahassee Community College. Sam, you wrote about him. We have a story up on the site last week. So, again, if you're an owlscoop.com subscriber, hopefully you've checked that out by now. But, again, as things stand right now, Temple has one more scholarship to give to this 2020 class. We've kind of hinted at this. Maybe there could be, anytime there's a coaching change and a guy like Aaron McKee is coming in and trying to establish things in his own image, could there be some roster movement? Could there be some pieces moving around? Could there be some comings and goings? Potentially. I would be mildly surprised if there wasn't. How that will all play out, we'll see. But one guy that they've offered still an offer out to this 2020 class, again, is Tariq Silver, a guy who, last time we checked in on him, shooting 50% from the field, 48% from three-point range. We talked about him a little bit last week, told you to check out that story, so hopefully you have by now. We're going to play some audio from Sam's conversation with Tariq Silver, but again, a guy that started out at Eastern Michigan and now Temple's in the mix for his recruitment. We obviously know they need shooters. You know, if you watch them online, again, I can't say we've been flying down to Tallahassee, although we could probably both use some sun at this point. Have not seen him live, but if you check him out online, looks like he can create his own shot, can definitely knock down a three-point shot, and if he ends up at Temple, we'll probably see some significant minutes next year. Again, we're working ahead on this. He's got some other schools in the mix. But again, Sam, before you lead us into this audio here, we touched a little bit on him last week, but what stood out from your conversation with Tariq?
So 2 things about him that really stood out for me. The first one being, and a lot of this comes from just watching film on him, is he's a catch-and-shoot guy. He's the kind of guy that he plays with probably the best point guard in his league. L. Ellis, I'm pretty sure is his name.
Mm-hmm.
And so L. Ellis is going to be the one that's going to control that offense. And Tariq Silver is a catch and shoot kind of guy. He's going to find open spots, and he's going to knock down shots for you. He's not going to be the one to catch the ball on the wing and put the ball on the floor and create something for a 3-point shot. I don't want to go as far as to say this, but to generalize this, but it seems like if he's putting the ball on the floor, he's either going to create for himself in the mid-range or try to get to the basket. And he's a guy that says, I can score at all 3 levels. He's a guy that feels confident in putting the ball on the floor, but a lot of where their offense comes from and his production is catch and shoot beyond the arc. And the other thing that really stood out to me in my conversation with him, is his conversations with Aaron McKee, because we've heard from just about every recruit that Aaron McKee doesn't talk to these players about basketball, he does, but not necessarily. It's less about basketball, more about life and how much basketball plays into life and how he wants to make these kids better men. And the thing that he said that really stood out was that in his conversations with him, he said, basketball is not forever. This is Tariq Silver. Basketball is not forever. He wants to go into coaching after his playing career is over, and that's something he's really connected with Aaron McKee in talking about that kind of thing and talking about leadership skills and being a good teammate. So it's interesting to hear about how those two have their conversations on a weekly basis, and Tariq gets into that a little bit in the audio. Can you tell me a little bit about how your season's been going so far?
So our season's been going really good. This is the first time since 2001 that we have been outright conference champions. Tallahassee has. So, we've done something here that hasn't been done in a long time. And it wasn't expected because it was Coach Zach's first year. He put the team together. And, we've kind of bought in from the beginning, though. We're like 25-5 or 26-5, something like that. But like I said, we won conference champs, but we want more. We know that we're capable of being really good. We feel like we're one of the most talented teams in the country, and we want to try to win a national championship. So conference champs was just the first step in our ultimate goal.
That's awesome. So how would you describe your role on the team?
My role, I'm more like I'm one of the older guys on the team. So obviously, I'm a good scorer. I'm a dependable scorer for us, but I have to be more than just that. Like kind of like a leader. Make sure the guys stay together. Coach really challenged me to be more vocal. He really wants me to challenge guys more, not necessarily with my ability, but just try to get the better more out of guys. Make sure guys stay, motivated, or make sure guys is locked in, and make sure guys stay bought into what we're trying to achieve. So I'm more of like a leader in a role, and I gotta do more than just score for us to be successful. I have to make sure the team stays together.
Sure, that's awesome. So you're listed as a guard. Do you generally play more on the ball, or do you like to play off the ball?
So I play more off the ball now. I know at Eastern, my old school, I was kind of like a point guard, but not a traditional point guard, just more or less just bring the ball up the court, put us in the set. But here we have a really good point guard, L. Ellis, and Coach kind of moves me off the ball, runs me off a lot of off ball screens, and when I do get it, I come off a lot of ball screens and stuff. But I'm more off the ball. I'm more of an off guard.
Okay. So how would you describe yourself as a player to someone that's never seen you play?
I'm a really good scorer. I score at 3 levels, but I'm more comfortable shooting the ball. I shoot the ball really well. Catch and shoot, dribble pull-up. I feel like dribble pull-ups is that's the most comfortable I am in the game. Like, I have a really good mid-range game. I can get to the paint. I have a nice floater. I shoot the ball really well, though. Coach Zach tried to make catch and shoot a point of emphasis in my game because he knows that not just college, but if I have aspirations to play professional basketball, shoot the ball is very important. So he kind of wants that to be my bread and butter and shoot the ball. So I really bought into that. So, I mean, yeah, I'm a 3-level scorer. I get to the rim. I'm really good at stopping and popping. I got a good floater, catch and shoot really well, and dribble pull-ups that's pretty much my game.
That's awesome. So I know you're kind of known for your three-point shooting. In all the film I've watched of you so far, it's a lot of catch and shoot from three-point land or try to get the ball inside and create for yourself. How much do you put in work on trying to create shots for yourself from beyond the arc and trying to create as opposed to catching and shooting from three? If that makes sense.
So yeah, I get what you're saying. I actually do that a lot, just because that was before I came to Tallahassee. That was originally how I played. I was always more of a get it on your own off the bounce. So it was natural for me. And when I first got here, our coach Jordan Talley, he's the one that he trains me a lot, and he kind of tried to take that apart away from me. So at the beginning part of him training me, it was mostly, catching, shooting, and getting my footwork better, coming off floppy screens or all ball screens. Mm-hmm. But as I got more comfortable to doing that, we kind of started adding that, but adding, dribbles off of that. So we started doing, I come off floppy screens, but let's say the shot's out there, pump fake, get into the paint, one dribble pull up. So I kind of my workouts is a little bit variety of everything. He tries to keep me and put me in a lot of game situations in my workouts. So I do a little bit of everything.
Awesome. Okay, so what's been your biggest improvement, or what has been your biggest focus for improvement in your game this season?
Defense. I've been, with the thing about scoring the ball, most people who score the ball don't really, don't really take pride in defense.
Sure.
Or they're labeled as not good defenders. And when I was at Eastern, we played a lot of 2-3 zone. Like, that's all we played was 2-3 zone. So I know it was been a doubt of, how good of a defender am I? And, at first, I did kind of struggle. I've always been a good on-ball defender, but I used to kind of struggle with off-ball, putting myself in right positions, help side defense, and stuff like that. So, Coach Zach really challenged me in that area, and I feel like I improved a lot. I feel like I'm a really good off-ball defender. I put myself in position to take charges or put myself in position to help the driving lane stay in gaps or just put myself in position to rebound the ball better. So I feel like that's been like my main focus is defense because the offense always been there. I've always been a really good scorer, but I really tried to buy the defense a lot more this year.
Sure. Was that a tough transition going from Eastern playing a zone defense, coming to Tallahassee, and then playing pretty much only man?
Yeah, no, it was it was crazy tough. So I remember when we first got here, and we were an open gym, and if I happened to be guarding somebody at the top of the key and they swing it and they cut, it was natural for me to stay in my zone position. So I used to lose my man a lot because I was kind of ball watching a little bit, and I was used to it. Was just natural for me to go into my zone positions. But I bought into it a lot, and it took some time to adjust. But I had to just keep working at it to make it get better. But it was a big adjustment for me.
Sure. And Temple offered you back in February. So when did they first get in touch with you, or when did they first come to see you play?
So Temple came down. They watched me practice. I want to say 2 weeks before they offered me. It was one of those things where when they came to watch me practice, I really didn't have the best of practice scoring-wise, but they were really impressed with it was assistant coach, Coach Ross. He was really impressed with my ability to be a leader, even when I wasn't scoring the ball well. Like, I still was engaged in practice. I still was trying to rebound, and I still was trying to, play defense and keep everybody engaged. He was really impressed with that because, everybody, it's not a secret. Everybody knows I can score the ball. But it's about, how can I impact the game other than scoring? And he was really impressed with that. So, yeah. That happened, and, he watched film, and they kept tabs with me, and then I started talking with Coach McKee on the phone, and we started developing a good relationship, and then that's when they decided to offer me.
That's awesome. So you said Monty Ross came to a practice. Did any other coaches come to watch you play that day?
No, sir. It was just Coach Ross.
Okay, and who have you been in contact with since he came to visit, like after the offer?
It's been Coach Ross and Coach McKee. Those are the two main people I talked to. I talked to Coach Ross almost every day. I talk to Coach McKee maybe 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, we all, and it's one of those things that when we talk, we don't really talk about. Well, really, mainly with Coach McKee, when we talk, we don't really talk about basketball that much. I mean, he's a really good guy. We mostly talk about life. Like, he checks up on me, asks me academically, asks if I'm, how, like, my situation is good. He asks me about my family. So, I mean, most of our talks is not even about basketball, it's about life.
That's awesome. What kind of relationship do you think you've been able to build with both Coach McKee and Coach Ross since then?
I feel like, so with Coach McKee, so when I'm done playing, I wanna get into coaching, and then we talked about that, and he kind of gives me advice, not like as a player advice, but as a leader, because when you coach, you're basically like a leader to your team.
Of course.
So he tries to give me different perspectives on different ways to lead. So he had talked about practice. He was, how was practice today? And I remember one day when he asked me that, we didn't really have a good practice. And I told him that, and his response was, well, why did I allow practice to be bad? And I didn't really think about it that way. So he tried to give me different perspectives and stuff like that. He tried to build my character more less than a basketball player, and I feel like that's really important.
Yeah, he's a smart dude. So you spent 2 seasons at Eastern Michigan before going to Tallahassee. What was your time like at Eastern Michigan?
So when I first got to Eastern Michigan, I redshirted my first year, and my redshirt year was really fun. I mean, I was fortunate enough to travel, so I got to travel. I got to see things. I got to experience the Division I lifestyle for the first time, and I didn't have to go along with the stress of playing. So I kind of got to enjoy myself a little bit more. I developed a great relationship with the players, and I mean, my freshman year was very fun. And then my sophomore year, I mean, it always gets a little bit more complicated when you want to play, but you're not playing as much as you feel like you should. So, I mean, it was a little bit more complicated. It was a struggle getting on the court and stuff like that. But once I started playing, I mean, I never really got to the point where I sulked. I always tried to be a really good teammate. I always tried to be supportive of the guys because I had a good relationship with all the team, with the players. Like, me and the players we still talk to today. I had a good relationship with them, so I always tried to be a really good teammate to them. But I got my chance. I made the best of it. And I mean, my time at Eastern, first year was really fun. Second year was a little complicated just because of the playing time aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know how that could be as a player.
Sure. So what do you think went into the decision to do a JUCO year before trying to go back and play Division I?
I think it was one of those things where I really wanted to, and I just put all the chips in myself. I had the confidence. I felt like I could be really good at the Division I level. I couldn't win D2, but I just felt like I couldn't be. I wanted to attack somebody's team. I wanted to see how good I could actually be. So I took the challenge up on JUCO because I know JUCO Instagram, and I felt like I was hungry, and the hunger drove me towards JUCO because I know JUCO, that's a place for hungry people. You can't be at JUCO and be lackadaisical or like just nonchalant because everybody's fighting for the same thing. So I just wanted to go JUCO route to try to challenge myself, and I believe that's the best decision I ever made.
Awesome. Just for clarification purposes, you said it was 2 years at Eastern Michigan. The first year was a red shirt, and then this is your first year at TCC, and then you're moving on back to Division I level next season. This is your first year. Okay. So what would you say is the most important thing to you when considering a school?
Relationship. Relationship is almost everything to me. Because at Eastern, I didn't really have the best of relationships with the coaching staff. So I feel like that is the point of emphasis that I want now. And I mean that's the reason why I decided to come to Tallahassee because Coach Zach. I mean, I had all type of powerhouse JUCOs calling my name, and it was one of those things where Coach Zach just made the extra effort that nobody was willing to make. Like Coach Zach drove from here to Tallahassee to Tennessee to see my mom, and then he drove from Tennessee to Michigan to see me, and just nobody else was willing to make that effort. So, I mean, because that showed me that he really wanted me, and the relationship we built, it was deeper than basketball. It became a trust.
Yeah.
And I want that same relationship with wherever I decide to go next year. I want to be able to have that trust in you, where, because this is my second go around. I'm not going to leave the next school I go to. So I mean, this is the next decision is everything. So I want to know that I want to get to the point where I trust you with my future. I trust you with my next 2 years, and that relationship is everything to me. I don't care the highest school. I don't care if it was Duke that called. I won't pick Duke over anybody. I just want, if it's relationships, if I have a really good relationship with the coach, and that's exactly where I want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So what other schools other than Temple have offered you so far?
So I do have quite a few offers. I have 20 offers.
Okay.
So I mean, I have Temple, UAB has offered, Coastal Carolina has offered. I took one of my visits to Coastal already.
Okay.
So I have Sienna has offered me. I mean, I have most of them. I have all of them on my Twitter page. I've had a lot.
Yeah, I won't make you name all. I won't make you name all 20. You said you visited. Which school did you visit?
Coastal Carolina.
Have you visited any other schools so far?
No, I haven't. That was the only school I have visited.
Okay.
I haven't visited any other schools. I visited them kind of before the year started, and now I just been trying to focus on the year. I'm trying to ride this to see how far we can go. This is the first time I ever had the ability to play for something as big as this, so I just been trying to put all my chips in this season.
Where would you say you are in your recruitment process right now?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Where would you say you are in your recruitment process right now?
I am to the point where I am starting to want to get more serious with it, because it's towards the end of the year, and I know after the year is over, I'm gonna want to start, cutting down my list and start planning visits. So I am to the point where I am starting to be more serious as the year comes towards the end. So I am starting to take my recruitment more seriously. At one point in time, I was going through sacks and everything, but now I'm starting to take my relationships a bit more serious and everything, and starting to try to cut that list down a little bit more.
All right, so like I said, hopefully you have read about Tariq Silver. Now you've heard from Tariq Silver here on The Scoop. So another name to follow. Again, I think we'll know, once the season is over, it could be over as soon as the end of next week, or at the very least after next weekend, unless Temple, again, barring some sort of uncanny turnaround where they pull off a remarkable run in the conference tournament, gets to the NCAA tournament. We're going to know sooner rather than later how some of these chips are going to fall. Does Tariq Silver end up being an owl? Are there going to be some pieces moving around on the roster? We'll see. But again, you've heard from Jahlil White, heard from Tariq Silver. Now, if you've checked out owlscoop.com over the next day or over the last day or day and a half or so, you'll see that Sam Newman has a story up on Eric Reynolds, a top 150 guard in the 2021 class. We'll touch on him here now, and then there's a mailbag question about this. He's down at the Bullis School in Maryland. Was supposed to be at the Temple-Villanova game, had a concussion, couldn't make it up for the game. Sam Newman caught up with him. We have a story up on him on the site now. So again, if you are an owlscoop.com subscriber, you can check out that story. We'll be following his recruitment as well. He's a guy that Temple has an offer out to, part of the 2021 class. Again, we'll have a lot more recruiting news for you as it moves forward here. Again, this is more... we kind of know what we have in the present here, looking ahead to the future with this basketball program. We'll see how things shape up over the next few weeks, next month. Temple did have a game Wednesday night at the Liacouras Center, their regular season home finale against Tulsa. The Owls are looking to avenge an ugly loss down in Tulsa, down in Oklahoma, against the Golden Hurricane, a game that Aaron McKee has talked about as a game that kind of changed their season, and not in a good way. Kind of has said before that he never really felt like the guys really recovered after that. So again, they did play Wednesday night at the Liacouras Center, so I am going to kick this over to future Sam and John at the Liacouras Center, where we had our wrap-up of Wednesday night's game. Well, so Temple's last 3 losses had come in situations where they could not get a field goal inside the game's last 4 minutes. Tonight at the Liacouras Center, this was something different altogether. The inefficient stuff, the dry spells came much earlier in the game. Temple went more than 10 minutes without a field goal, almost 9.5 minutes without a point. Somehow they only lost this game to Tulsa by 10, 61-51, and managed to get it to within 8 with less than a minute to go because they defended well. They held Tulsa to sub 40% shooting, but this was pretty bad. A senior night that Aaron McKee, Quentin Rose, Alani Moore, Damian Moore were hoping was going to be a lot better, was not that. Temple had gotten out to an early lead. Damian Moore had played well, scored 6 of Temple's first 8 points. They fell behind. They're down 26-23 at one point late in the first half. And then that next field goal, their very next field goal, did not come until the 12-minute, 50-second mark of the second half. Really poor shooting all around. Again, the final result is a 61-51 loss to to Tulsa. So now Temple is 14-16 overall, 6-11 in league standings here. Depending on how things go, if Temple loses to Cincinnati at Cincinnati Saturday night in the regular season finale, which is totally plausible. Probably likely. Graham Foley joining us in the post-game wrap-up here, by the way. It's senior night.
Return.
It's senior night for him, as he'll be glad to point out. They could start. We love you. They could be the 11th seed in the conference tournament. Certainly not what Aaron McKee wanted. Certainly not what this team wanted. But here they are. Again, they defended well, and it was a weird game where somehow they kind of managed to get their way back into it. But the offensive futility was bad. There were some dispirited stretches of basketball. There was some bad body language, some frustration, which you're obviously going to have. But sounds like the obvious question, guys, but how bad was it tonight?
Yeah, I mean, that was the almost frustrating part for Temple, too, that it felt like they were right there. If they just put together like a small run of scoring, they could get right back in this game. They just never did. During that 10-minute run of no field goals, almost 10 minutes of no points, they also missed 4 free throws in a row, and there were plenty of layups by Nate Pierre-Louis and Quentin Rose that were just missed. It wasn't, this incredible defensive game by Tulsa. It was just bad fundamental basketball with zero energy in the building, and it just felt lifeless. And Aaron McKee talked in the post-game press conference about this is a time you want to play your best basketball if you want to have any hope of doing something in the conference tournament, and they're probably playing their worst basketball of the season, of what's been a really bad season. So, yeah, there's not much really to say, honestly. It was just really bad basketball.
Graham, well put. It was a lifeless game. There was virtually no offensive production on either side of the ball. I think the two biggest surprises for me after this one are that Damian Moore was Temple's second leading scorer of the night with 9 points, only behind Quentin Rose with 15, who shot a measly 4 for 14 from the field, just 2 for 8 from 3. But the fact that Temple was down 20 at one point, crawled all the way back to being down just 8. I mean, Tulsa only had 61 points on the night. It's not like they had some unbelievable offensive stretch or offensive production. Temple didn't do anything, but Tulsa didn't exactly have an unbelievable game either. So it was just a really not good basketball.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Martin's Igbanu killed Temple off the bench for Tulsa. He had 17 points, 6 of 11 from the floor.
Tulsa's bench outscored Temple as a whole, 30-15 too, which is significant. I feel like.
I mean, as a whole here. I mean, conversely for Temple, Monty Scott, Jake Forrester, and Josh Pierre-Louis. Josh Pierre-Louis, after not playing at all against USF, plays a shade over 9 minutes tonight, gets 2 points. But Monty Scott, Jake Forrester, and Josh Pierre-Louis combined for 6 points. Dre Perry had 8 off the bench, but just one missed shot after another. The same story. Aaron McKee talked about some of the same things tonight, saying, we have to reverse our mentality, reverse our mindset. It should be the other way around, implying that it should be the other way around where your defense fuels your offense. But these guys just get so dejected when the ball doesn't go through the basket, which is, of course, natural, but good teams have to fight through that. And, again, this is a Temple team that started off 4-0, then 9-3. At one point, they were 10-6 after they had beaten Wichita State when Wichita State was ranked 16th in the country. And they've gone, 4-10 since then. And it's just hard to imagine them winning a game in the conference tournament right now the way they're playing.
It was really that last Tulsa game where they lost 70-44. The season kind of took a downhill spiral, and you touched on it. But Aaron McKee saying after the game in the post-game press conference that when their offense isn't working, they seem almost lifeless on defense. But Temple's best basketball comes when their defense creates their offense. So, and he said it should be the other way around. They should be able to keep their heads up. And someone asked Quentin Rose and Damian Moore, like, how when you have these dry spells, what's your mindset? And they just put your head down, keep playing hard. But there's only so much they can say. Ball's not falling through the hoop. Guys aren't scoring. Alani Moore, Napier Louis. When you have guards that should be second, third options to score the ball, are scoring no more than 4 points on a given night, or aren't scoring more than 4 points in a big game at the end of the season in March. Can't win basketball games like that.
Yeah, Alani Q and Nate were 1 of 10 combined in their first 10 field goals, and there have been stretches all throughout the season where each player's had their best stretches of basketball. Alani Moore earlier in the season was hitting threes. There have been times where Quentin Rose has been efficient, where Napier Louis has taken over games, where J.P. Mormon works as a zone buster, where even Damian Moore gets production, when Jake Forrest doesn't foul out early or have to go to the bench because of foul troubles. But it seems like right now everyone's playing their absolute worst, where they're not doing anything that brings production to the team, and it's just adding up to really bad basketball.
And that was something even last year where, granted they had Shiz Olsen, but if he wasn't playing well, it was like one other guy's going to step up. If that guy doesn't step up, they'll have someone else step up. And this feels like more, to an extent, more of the same of if one guy doesn't step up, something like Quinn Rose doesn't have a great game, Napier Louis will, and we saw that in the last couple of weeks. But with this team, if they're going to win basketball games, they need multiple guys to be able to play well. They need multiple guys to have offensive production, and that comes from the starting lineup. That comes from the bench. That's strength in numbers. They talk about it all season, but strength in numbers, but also you need multiple guys to be able to score the basketball and to produce for this team if they're going to be any good. And they have the pieces to win games. They have the pieces to score the basketball. They just when multiple guys aren't doing it, they're losing.
So Lonnie Moore goes 1 of 7 tonight. Napier Louis 1 of 6. Dre Perry 3 of 9 off the bench. Quentin Rose 4 of 14. JP 2 of 8. Temple shoots 29.8% overall, 17 of 57 from the floor, 23.1%, 6 of 26 from three-point range. They missed 7 foul shots tonight, 11 of 18. Same story. Now they have to go out to Cincinnati. If they can beat Cincinnati and win 4 in a row down in Fort Worth, that'll be a very, very improbable scenario. Hell of a story, but
on to Cincinnati.
Don't see it happening. Touching on football a little bit here again, before you know it, we're just a few days away now. Spring football begins March 10th. Again, I think I mentioned on last week's show, as I understand it, I think practices are going to be closed entirely to the media. It kind of is what it is, because in the past we've been able to see the last 10, 15 minutes of practice, and all we really end up seeing are sprints and the end of special teams drills and stuff
can't
like
learn
that.
Much from that.
No, you can't really. So I don't want to be disingenuous and say, "Oh, this stinks. We can't really see much of practice." But what we get more out of, sure. I mean, if you get a chance to see some of practice, you can see who flashes and stuff like that. I don't want to downplay that, but we are going to get a lot of access to the coaches and the coaching staff throughout the spring. Just got the schedule this week. We will post that on our alscoop.com football message board, so you can see the list of interviews that a list of coaches that the media will be able to talk to. So that goes right down from Rod Carey to Jeff Knowles to Mike Uremovich. We'll get a chance to talk to the assistants throughout the spring. But again, spring ball begins on the 10th. Pro Day will begin March 16th. That's in a mailbag question coming up. We've got spring ball coming up, and that'll lead us into our first mailbag question here from Green Street Al. And it's a football one. He says, "Don't think I missed this, but when is Temple's Pro Day?" Again, it'll be March 16th. And even if that's not known, care to speculate on our participants outside of the combine, guys? Obviously, Wright, meaning Isaiah Wright, would be one. Side note, and feel free to comment unless it's part of your regular coverage this week, it seems like our guys did well at the combine. So, again, first thing, just acknowledging your question there, who's going to be there? As I understand it, again, Pro Day will be March 16th. We'll have access, I think, around 10:45 or 11 a.m. that day. Don't have an official list yet of everyone participating, but I would imagine that most, if not all, of last year's seniors will be there. So that should include, again, Isaiah Wright, Dana Levine, DeAndre Kelly, Benny Wall. So there'll be some names to keep an eye on there. I think Isaiah Wright will be the big name that people will be looking at because of the physical tools, because of the ability that he's flashed in the past. He did not get a combine invite, so his 40 time there will be essential. I'll be kind of curious to see how a Dana Levine does, or even a DeAndre Kelly, guys who, benefited from some good coaching this year from Walter Stewart along the defensive line. So that's when Pro Day is. And yes, Temple's guys did generally do pretty well in the combine. I'd say Sean Bradley probably helped himself as much as anybody. Run a 4.51 second 40-yard dash. That was the 5th fastest time for a linebacker in the combine. Matt Hennessy ran a 5.140, had the 2nd fastest three-cone drill time for an offensive lineman. We know that he's interviewed well. He's been held in pretty high regard. Chappelle Russell ran a 4.6940, pretty solid time for him considering that he's had 2 ACL injuries at Temple. Harrison Hand ran a 4.5240, so Sean Bradley's time was actually a fraction of a second better. I think that, I think we know that Matt Hennessy will be drafted. I think Sean Bradley definitely helped himself get into the conversation of being drafted. Now it might just be a matter of where. So, I think just about everybody helped themselves out there at the combine. So again, we'll get a chance hopefully to talk to those guys on March 16th, the pro day. I would imagine unless there's some sort of unforeseen development, you're probably not going to see any of those guys run the 40 again unless they really feel that they can do something different to improve their times. But we'll hopefully talk to all those guys for you and, again, get some other guys into the mix, talk to Isaiah Wright, Dana Levine, anybody we can hear from at Pro Day. So again, a lot of football stuff coming up the pike. Next mailbag question, this is a basketball one from the message board from Mission Man. Should JPL, meaning Josh Pierre-Louis, have been redshirted this season? That is, would he still have come here if that was going to be Aaron's request for him? And is he currently injured? Don't think he got any minutes versus USF. So, no, I don't think that Josh Pierre-Louis is injured. I saw him practicing. Again, Sam and I are sitting down right now recording this portion of the podcast on Wednesday afternoon. Saw him at practice yesterday, and he looked fine. He's running sprints, shooting foul shots, does not appear to be injured. Yes, you're right, he did not play against USF. Should he have been redshirted? No, I don't think he should have been redshirted. I mean, you see what he did against Southern Cal out at USC. I don't know what's going on there just yet. I don't know if it's just the ups and downs of his freshman season. Again, I think we'll know more after the season's up. What's going on there with Josh? Not an uncommon thing for a freshman to have ups and downs, regardless of whether you're a top 150 player or not. But
McKee mentioned, especially with freshmen, these kinds of things take time to really get into the flow of college basketball. And I mean, he came in, he's a flashy kid. He's got some things to work on, and they've mentioned that before.
Right, but I get it. I mean, in a game against a lower tier conference opponent that they ultimately lost to, Josh has shown some playmaking ability. There's no question about it. He's had his ups and downs, but sure, I think it's notable they didn't play against USF. Don't believe he's injured, so we'll follow that and see what's going on there. Next question from Twitter comes from our friend Varun Kumar. Again, an occasional OwlScoop.com contributor. I really hope you can meet Varun at one point. Again, he's a
Is he from around here?
He is. He's from Varun. I apologize, buddy, if I get this wrong. From the Fort Washington area, went to Germantown Academy, went to Pitt as an undergrad, but has always just been a hardcore Temple fan, Big Five fan. He's just an old soul. Has written some stuff for us, always a loyal listener to the podcast. We appreciate that. Checking in on Twitter. Actually, I think Varun's a terrific follow on Twitter. You can follow him at VRKumar, KUMAR 8. His question, little change of pace here. What's your go-to song that you play on the first warm and sunny day of the spring?
So I saw this question on Twitter earlier, and I was trying to think about it because I want to come in with a good answer. I feel like the best I can give is, to preface, I feel like it changes every year. There's I don't have one song that every year. But as of right now, I have one general answer and one specific. There's no way you know it, but the song Floats Your Boat by Air, A-E-R.
I don't know.
It's probably my right now song. But
is this a song that most young people will know and I just don't know it because I'm 43?
It came
or is
out
this
2006, maybe 2007. So it's older, but like early 2000s it came out, maybe closer to 2000.
What is it, like rock, pop?
I wouldn't call it pop. Probably call it a form of hip hop. I don't know. Pop or hip hop.
So worth
R&B,
listening to.
Kind of. Air, AER was a band that didn't last very long. They have 2 or 3 singles that did really well, but I mean I think they broke up pretty quickly after that. And then the other thing, the general answer I give is I'm a seasonal country fan. Where I'm from, just about everyone I know loves country music.
Really?
I don't know why. people in
I
Massachusetts
didn't.
are big country
I was going to
fans.
say I'm absolutely painting with a broad brush here. I did not imagine that
Me neither.
that Massachusetts would be a big country music area.
Me neither, but a lot of my friends love country music, and I get a lot of heat for it from some of my friends. But like, I'll only listen to it once the weather gets nice. If it's sunny and I'm driving to the beach with the windows down, and I'll only really listen to the popular stuff, like the stuff that's not like real country. But that's my general answer.
Like what? If you have a go-to country song,
Like Dan and Shay, or what's his name? I see that this is bush league for me, because I really just don't follow country enough to. I let my friends find the music, and then as the summer rolls through, I let them take care of it. But
yeah, it's a good question. I think there's stuff. I think everybody can relate to this. Like, music makes you think of, it reminds you of like different times of your life, different like seasonal occasions. I think for me it's different every year.
It's the kind of music that you're going to drive to the beach with the windows down.
Yeah, I think of like, even when spring, like beach stuff for me, for whatever reason, like when I think of beach music, and I was thinking of this like today, because like you and Ray went down to, I know it's not beach weather, but you stopped in
We still went to the beach this morning.
Stopped in Cape May, I'm jealous. Stopped in Wildwood to see Jahlil White play. When I've been driving down to the beach, I listen to, I know it sounds cliche as all hell, but like the Beach Boys.
Nice.
The Eagles, like I'm a big like Eagles. Actually, I've never seen the Eagles live, the band that is.
Yeah.
But I love listening to them when I go down to the beach. When it comes to spring music, I don't know, for whatever reason, I remember listening to like some like old school R&B, like the Temptations, the Delphonics, like Philly soul type of stuff. But it does kind of change. It does kind of change for me every year. But I was thinking about that because we've had like some small doses of spring weather, and you think of
we basically skipped winter this year.
Yeah, we did.
There was no winter. We didn't get any snow here. My parents got some snow back home, but we
got a little bit of snow right before Christmas, around December, I think, right? But that was about it. So
the first iPod I ever got when I was younger,
was it like a little iPod Nano?
Yeah.
Nice.
First song I ever downloaded, Surfin' USA by the Beach Boys.
Oh, that's tremendous. That's tremendous. So, yeah, I think of like a lot of Philly soul stuff, Temptations, Delphonics, even like some Hall & Oates stuff. I don't know, like Philly-centric stuff when you can roll down the windows. And if I'm like driving out of Philly and home to Havertown, like I like listening to that type of stuff. So I love that question, Vroom. Keep them coming. Next question from the message boards. This is a screen name P. Furmy. JDC and Sam, given that the 2021 class will be a huge class for the program, as we should have at least 5 scholarships available by my count, can you give the listeners an idea of who the top targets are at this point, specifically big men? I think we all know Stevie Mitchell being a top priority. I think we all know that Stevie Mitchell is a top priority, but curious to hear who else is. Thanks again for taking my question. Keep up the great work on the website and the pod. Appreciate the compliments and the kind words there. 2021 class, we've covered a lot of these names before. Again, he mentioned Stevie Mitchell. You've talked to Stevie, covered him. Again, his recruitment is continuing to grow. Temple fans aren't going to like to hear this, but Villanova was in to see him recently. Wouldn't be shocked if they offer. So if they get him, they're going to earn him. So, his recruitment's probably going to continue to pick up if he has a strong April on the AAU circuit. We mentioned Eric Reynolds earlier in the podcast. Sam Newman, talked to him. He's a name for 2021 from the Bullis School, combo guard. Sam Iamide, 6'9" center from the Phelps School out in Malvern, along the main line. If you're talking big specifically, Sam's a name to keep an eye on. Taquan Woodley out of Camden, a 6'7" forward from Camden. I think Temple's in pretty good on his recruitment there, but they're going to be competing with Penn State and some other programs. Not so much maybe a traditional big, but again, we've mentioned Zach Hicks, a 6'7" wing forward from Camden Catholic. So those are some of the names that would jump out to me. And again, I think we're either going to be adding from this list or subtracting from this list. Give us another month or two, see how things go in April. Again, this is a program that recruits locally, but they recruit nationally now because they have to, because again, it's been a challenge to get some of the top local guys, and even Jay Wright can relate to that. Some of the top local guys end up leaving the area, but this is a program that is going to reach into the Midwest with the 2021 class potentially, or reach into Georgia. We've seen them obviously reach into North Carolina and Georgia with players like Quincy Adamakoya and guys like that, and Damian Dunn. So I think this list will grow. It will change, obviously, but those are some of the names that I would think of as of now. That'll do it for this week. Again, thanks for sticking with us. Thanks to Jahlil White and Dave DeWeese for taking some time to talk to us this week. Thanks to Tariq Silver for taking some time to talk to us as well. Again, next week, I should say, too, just a programming note. So next week, we're going to hope to have Fran Duffy, who works with the Eagles, does a great podcast with the Eagles called Eagle Eye in the Sky. And Fran not only evaluates NFL players, but evaluates college players, was down at the Combine, was at the Shrine Bowl, was at the Senior Bowl. I know he was at the Senior Bowl. Might have been at the Shrine Bowl practice. I'm not sure. But anyway, Fran's going to hopefully be with us next week. So when it comes time to talking about the Temple guys, did they improve their stock? How does it look for them? Fran's going to be able to chime in. He's going to be with us here in the PalatialAlScoop.com studios.
He's going to be here. Not to be confused with Fran Dunphy.
Right. Fran Dunphy, as much as I love him, will not be on our podcast next week, the former basketball coach. But Fran Duffy, a current member of the Philadelphia Eagles organization, their multimedia team, will be with us. So we'll have him here talking football, talking Combine. Again, if you have heard us talk about Fran before, he's been on our podcast before, former video coordinator during the Al Golden years. So he knows the Temple football program, knows the college game, knows the NFL game. Not just saying this because he's going to be on our podcast, but really, really does a great job of breaking things down. He'll talk to Greg Cosell and people like that. Has a great podcast that's worth listening to. So he'll be with us next week to talk Combine, talk about the future of some of these Temple prospects here. And, of course, we'll have more basketball for you, any recruiting updates that we can pass along. So, again, thanks for hanging out with us, and we will talk to you next week.